I've been an Android fan for as long as I can remember, with the ability to sideload unauthorized APKs which enable you to emulate your favorite old school games, with ReVanced also giving you an amazing ad-free YouTube experience. You were able to access so many incredible features which official developers wouldn't ever dare to hand over to you. Installing cracked APK files felt like discovering a secret backdoor, no App Store gatekeepers, no corporate overlords, a platform that was so much more freer than what Apple was offering with their iPhone. It felt amazing knowing that your hundreds of pounds that were spent on the phone had given you the utmost freedom. Unfortunately, everything that we've come to love about the Android platform is about to change. Google is planning to get rid of everything that made Android different from Apple's suffocating operating system. Google has announced that every single app developer, even those who have never touched the Play Store, must now verify their identity with Google before their apps can be installed onto Android devices. They're calling it developer verification. For 15 years, Android users had this major advantage over iPhone prisoners as they were able to install whatever the hell they wanted. We had emulators that Apple would never approve of, even a Android PS2 emulator. Even though it didn't run properly, it was nice to see that it was still available. We had ad blockers that threatened Google's revenue systems, and there were so many different tools that were created by developers who didn't want their identities revealed in the case of risking their lives. This is just one step that's being added to this major push of everyone who has access to the internet being ID verified. First, we have the issues with the payment processors no longer supporting adult content, and then the Online Safety Act, which introduced ID verification for anyone who wants to access adult material or content that the government deems to be inappropriate. There is even more restriction and control, and Google is positioning this as a way to protect users from malware, when in actuality this is about protecting Google's billion-dollar Play Store empire from competition from unauthorized applications. By doing this, Google is making sure that every piece of software that runs on Android devices flows through Google's approval pipeline, complete with their surveillance, their data collection, and their ability to kill any app that threatens their business model. Unfortunately, Android is transforming from this open platform into a controlled ecosystem that rivals Apple's iPhone. In the golden age, Android represented something pretty revolutionary with smartphones, while iPhone users were begging Apple for basic features like changing their default apps. Android users were running full desktop emulators on their devices, installing modded versions of popular apps, and accessing software that gatekeepers would never approve of. Take for example ReVanced, which has become the successor to ReVanced as it lets millions of users skip ads, play videos in the background, and access premium features without paying Google's subscription fee. Then you have F-Droid, which has thousands of open source applications built by developers who have prioritized user privacy over profit. Here you can access emulation apps like Drastic, PPSSP, as well as the Dolphin emulator. With Google blocking sideloading of unverified Android apps, the policy is going to require developers to verify their ID with Google. This definitely means that any progress with improving emulation on handhelds will stall permanently, and as soon as these mobile phones are coming out of the factory with the new versions of Android installed, it's pretty much game over for the emulation scene on Android. There's another critical app called Android APK. It's an open source artificial pancreas system that helps insulin dependent diabetics to manage their blood sugar levels. All of this is done automatically, and the application has literally kept people alive. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist in the Play Store due to medical liability concerns. The volunteer developers who maintain this life-saving software aren't commercial entities. They're just passionate individuals who refuse to monetize critical technology like this. Under Google's new verification requirements, these developers face an impossible choice: surrender their personal info to a corporation whose business model conflicts with their values, or abandon the thousands of diabetics who depend on their app. Google's system doesn't recognize the difference between a malware distributor and a medical software app that's being created by passionate volunteers. This entire ecosystem of experimental, educational, and alternative software that defined Android's competitive advantage is being eliminated systematically now. Google doesn't want you thinking about the $47 billion that consumers have spent on Google Play apps and games in 2023. Every time someone installs ReVanced, instead of paying for YouTube Premium, Google loses loses money. Did you know that apps that are downloaded from the Play Store, Google takes about 15 to 30% from in-app transactions, thanks to these transactions being made via the company's own payment processing system. So yeah, you download an app that isn't from the Play Store, then you're bypassing these transaction fees, thus making Google lose revenue. Google's own analysis claims there's 50 times more malware from internet sideloaded sources than on apps available through Google Play, but security researchers have torn this statistic apart. The comparison is fundamentally dishonest. It's like comparing crime rates in a gated community to global crime rate statistics. Of course, everyone knows that curated stores like the Play Store have less malware than the open internet, but Google conveniently ignores how their own Play Store regularly hosts malicious apps that bypass their security screening, while legitimate apps get banned by automated systems with no human available for review. The timing of this policy from Google reveals their real motivations. It comes directly after Epic Games won their antitrust lawsuit, with courts ordering Google to allow alternative app stores and reduce barriers for competition. Instead of complying with the spirit of these rulings, Google is now implementing verification requirements that create even higher barriers through mandatory registration and identity verification. They're using security and malware concerns as a cover for anti-competitive behavior, it seems. The verification system also enables unprecedented data collection and control. Google will now be able to track every app that's distributed outside of their ecosystem, thus building comprehensive profiles of the entire Android software landscape. They'll know which developers are creating alternatives to their services, which apps are gaining popularity outside of their control, and exactly who to target when they want to eliminate competition. The developer verification requirement transforms Google from a platform provider into a central authority that must approve every piece of software running on Android devices. Individual developers need to submit government-issued photo IDs, legal names, complete home addresses, and verified phone numbers, all of which will be publicly visible on app listings. Companies are facing even steeper requirements. They need to submit incorporation documents and verified websites that have Google Search Console access. All of this additional paperwork alone will eliminate thousands of small-scale developers who create niche apps for specialized communities. Developer Jake Lee documented how the verification process forced him to establish a company with virtual office services costing £67 annually just to protect his personal address from public exposure. The IceBlock app case perfectly illustrates why developer anonymity matters. When an anonymous developer created an app to help immigrants avoid ICE raids, federal authorities threatened prosecution, and his wife lost her federal job after his identity was revealed. Google has provided zero protections for developers, requiring anonymity for legitimate safety concerns. The ID verification system integrates with existing Play Protect infrastructure. This means that Google can instantly disable any developer's ability to distribute software across the entire Android ecosystem. Google's developer verification isn't happening in isolation, it's a part of this coordinated global assault on digital anonymity. Multiple governments, including the UK government, have been implementing ID verification for citizens who want to access adult content online. And they're even going after foreign websites like 4chan who are not abiding by the Online Safety Act, which is UK legislation. YouTube is now requiring phone numbers for channels with significant reach, and they're gauging the age of users with AI, as it appears as though they are following suit with the UK and Australian government's age verification laws. Every major online platform appears to be building ID databases, which affects everyone's digital privacy online, as it's eliminating any form of anonymity. All of these governments who are implementing age verification checks have thrown children under the bus. They claim that it's for protecting children online, when in actuality they just want to implement digital authoritarianism. And the same thing appears to be the case here with Google and their verification for developers. They want to protect people from installing malicious, harmful software from sideloaded apps, but the true purpose is to eliminate anonymity, create comprehensive surveillance, and to ensure that only approved apps can be downloaded from their official app store, which benefits them the most in terms of revenue. The Android community have responded with fury. Users have been declaring their intention to switch to iPhone. The irony of all of this is that they are finding more freedom in Apple's ecosystem than Google's supposed open platform. One user stated that the main reason that they have kept using Samsung is the ability to sideload apps such as ReVanced Manager. They cannot imagine Google allowing ReVanced Manager to be verified. Another commenter stated, "If I'm going to get stuck in a walled garden, I'll just go to iPhone. Their ecosystem is so much more flexible fleshed out and balanced. Custom ROM communities are mobilizing as kind of like the last source of freedom on Android. Graphene OS and Lineage OS don't include Google certification by design, so it potentially makes them immune to verification requirements, but these solutions are typically beyond the technical ability of most users. Historically, the Electronic Frontier Foundation and similar digital rights organizations have refused to develop iOS apps due to Apple's restrictive developer agreements. Google's new policy creates identical barriers that these organizations had previously considered were unique to Apple's authoritarian practices. The timeline for when all of this will be happening is pretty specific. October 2025 will see the launch for early access for developers who want to test Google's verification system. March 2026 opens the floodgates for all developers to begin the identification process. September 2026 marks Enforcement Day in Indonesia, Brazil, Singapore, and Thailand, the countries that Google selected as testing grounds for their freedom elimination experiment. By 2027, global enforcement begins, and after that date, installing any unverified app on mainstream Android devices will be impossible. No more downloading APKs from GitHub, no more F-Droid repositories, no more emergency app installations when something breaks and you need a quick fix to download a downgraded version. Honestly, just thinking about it, the consequences to this are staggering. We do have 14 months to fight back against Google before it implements this change, which will transform Android from an open platform into a controlled ecosystem. Now, we have reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you think about these verification checks that Google is implementing for developers? And what are your thoughts about the Android ecosystem being changed forever? If there's anything that I've forgotten to mention, then let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.